I can tell you very simply that I am very pleased to be invited to this forum, and I am very happy to be able to deliver some speech to you. But you will be certainly disappointed because I am not a good performer, and I am by my education I am basically a scientist, and I studied chemistry, and this is not a field where people are able to produce something quite interesting. Unlike the genetics, this is quite different. And Arthur was so kind to tell you about some of my occupations, which maybe was not quite unsuccessful, but I can tell you about one real big failure of my career, and I'm quite happy that you will discuss this issue from another point of view, but let me just not start with something which is not connected to my topic, and this is Earth Charter actually. And in fact, Earth Charter was the original idea of Maurice Strong. You may remember Maurice Strong, who was the Secretary General or Director General, how they call it, of this Stockholm Conference, and then also of the Rio Earth Summit. And within the period of time of preparation of this Earth Summit, I was elected as a chairman of the Working Group 3. And Working Group 3 was entrusted with dealing with different issues, like legal issues, like many different things which were not just topical ones. And at the beginning, Maurice Strong came to me and said, look, I would suggest that one of the subjects of your group would be to prepare the Earth Charter. So that was the idea, and I was extremely happy that I was entrusted with the task somehow to prepare and then negotiate the Earth Charter. And I took my pains, and I took a lot of efforts and time at the beginning to prepare everything and to discuss with different people at the level of highest diplomacy of the representatives of the governments who were designed to the and who were representing governments within the preparation of that Earth Summit. And everything went well until and there were actually a good draft of the basic, not Earth Charter, but basic elements of the Earth Charter. And everything went well until the first week of the last preparatory committee, which was in New York, which was in, I think it was May to 1992, because the conference started on 5th or 4th of June 1992. And there suddenly was an opposition to the Earth Charter, and everything collapsed. And there was no Earth Charter, and there was a lot of discussion. When I remember that period of time, that was one of the worst periods of time in my working career, because I was simply not able to persuade the audience that there is something necessary called Earth Charter. So in the end, the chairman of the preparatory committee, what was Tommy Koh that time, a well-known diplomat and statesman from Singapore, he took over, and then the Rio Declaration was prepared. So we do have Rio Declaration as a legal document, but we have Earth Charter, as you will certainly hear, and you know, still in the preparation and still evolving. So that was my failure, and maybe that it is something which is worth mentioning. But I am not here to tell you stories about Earth Charter. There are different people to do that, and I would like to say something about the development of sustainable development notion, and maybe something related to the values. So the very idea of sustainable development and the term is in the sense how it is used today was actually coined already in the 1980 with the rather well-known IUCN strategy of conserving nature. And then it was developed, as everybody knows, by the Brundtland Commission in 1987. The Brundtland definition is famous. Everybody knows it. And this is the definition which was criticized from the very beginning, very rightly criticized. But if you look at the development of the different definitions, more and more the time lapses, the more time the original definition is quoted, and nobody goes behind that. Nevertheless, the definition is quite fuzzy, and but despite that, it points to my understanding to three very important elements which we should keep in mind when talking about the definition of sustainable development. So the first element is that it is people-centered. That it is concerned about people. It says the needs of people, of generations, and so forth. So this is the first element. The second element is that it is a very long-term view is introduced. There is said next generations or future generations without any time limit. And third element is that it has basically an ethical base. That it is something which is definitely not without moral and ethical dimension. But on the other hand, it is, as I said, it is rather fuzzy, and it is very difficult to define and to have a sensible consensus. What does it mean? Needs, what does it mean, needs of current and especially the future, the needs of the future generations. But from the time of Brundtland report in 87, a lot of work was done and a lot of time was spent on developing further this definition. And in fact, the whole notion, the whole conception of sustainable development developed in such a way, as you know, we now have three pillars. We have economic, social, and environmental pillar. And in fact, the evaluation, the development in these three pillars somehow is more and more precisely defined, and the rather qualitative definition which was at the beginning, is moving into more quantitative terms. And therefore, we do now have many indicators of social pillar. We have Millennium Development Goals, which is mostly focused on social dimension with more than 40 indicators. We have economic indicators, and we certainly do have environmental indicators. But I think that we should also ask, what is the underpinning? What is the base for all this? We should ask, what is the reason? What is the purpose of the whole thing? And we should ask about the value of the sustainable development and its developments and its specific aspects itself. And so, therefore, I think it is extremely important that together with this development of these quantitative measures, with exact, precise indicators, well-defined with units and so forth, is also developing the other side, and that is the value judgment, the development of values, and the qualitative and more holistic view on the whole thing. And just to conclude, I would suggest two maybe basic assumptions for how to view the and on which to base the view on sustainable development in general. First of all, we should understand that from the very beginning, it is a sort of moral obligation, because we start with the notion of, if I may quote Edmund Burke, who said that the people is the community of the living, of the dead, and of the not yet born. And I think that we should look at the mankind and on ourselves from that broader perspective, and I think that is one very important source of our valuation. The other source is that we are living in the era which was called by Mr. Crutzen as Anthropocene. Anthropocene is a new era which is characterized by a rather total human domination over the planet Earth. And we are simply the masters of the planet. And with that comes the also not only the total mastership, but also the total responsibility. And we should be good stewards of the planet. And these two things, I think, and I would suggest, could be taken as the basis of the moral obligation we do have towards ourselves and towards the future generations. Thank you for your attention.